Hey, what's up, everybody? So I'm coming to you today with another 2020 year-end top 10. And this one is going to be on the 130-pound super featherweight division. This is the division that got a lot better in 2020. And rolling into 2021, it's kind of a division that really could take off and become one of the best divisions in boxing based on some of the fighters that they have. But again, remember, I go back a year and a half based on a year and a half because of COVID instead of a year in terms of guys that dropped out. So I gave, if you fought from July 1st of 2019 through December of 2020, or you have your next fight scheduled at least, then you remain in the top 10. If you haven't fought since before that and you are not on the schedule, then you drop out. So those are the rules on the dropouts. So we only have two guys that are out of the top 10 from last year that dropped out. The first is 35-year-old former world title challenger Mickey Roman from Mexico. He previously was number 6, and he entered 2020. Really needed to get back into the mix because he ever since his knockout loss in 18 in November of 2018 to Miguel Berchelt for the WBC title, which he fought hard, but he got stopped in the later rounds. He fought twice in 2019, low-level competition, got decision wins. So he needed to jump back into the mix. He took on Oshikwe Foster in November and pretty much got worked, and he ended up getting stopped in the 9th round of that fight. And, Roman was one of those guys that was kind of fading out of things anyway, so I dropped him out based on inactivity and that loss. Just a heads up, Foster did not get in with that win because I really feel like Roman's just past it. And, he's kind of towards the end of his career now. He's not ranked by any governing body anymore, so I'm not sure if he continues to fight at 35. I'm not sure if he gets back into the mix here. At 130, but I think maybe moving up to lightweight might be an option for him. A lot of older fighters do that stuff, so we'll see. And the other guy to drop out is undefeated 26-year-old Shavkat Rakhimov. He previously was number 10. He didn't fight at all in 2020 because of COVID, one, but also he was waiting around to see what the IBF was going to do about his mandatory status. He had some drama when he became the IBF's mandatory #1 contender at the end of 2000 and at the end of 20 I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, guys. At the end of 2019, he had some drama from his TKO win to become the mandatory challenger, which held things up. But then he was reinstated as the #1 challenger, and there was a lot of back and forth with that, because originally it was supposed to be Tevin Farmer challenging Joseph Diaz in a mandatory rematch for the title, but then the IBF changed the game and said, Diaz has to fight Rakhimov first because he's a mandatory challenger. So that kind of left everything with COVID on top of it up in limbo. DAZN having a little bit of an issue with Golden Boy Promotions also kind of affected things because DAZN the things got held up because of COVID, but also because of Canelo's dispute with DAZN, because everything revolves around Canelo for Golden Boy Promotions. So that kind of held things up. So we had to wait and see. But Shavkat Rakhimov now, even though he's dropping out of my top 10, he is fighting next against Joseph Diaz in February, and he has a chance to win his first world title, and that's a big deal right there. So I believe that fight's taking place on February 13th. When we get into Joseph Diaz, we'll talk about that. But that's a big time thing right there for Shavkat Rakhimov. So he has a chance to jump right back in, and with a lot of force, because he can move straight into the top 5 if he were to beat Joseph Diaz. So we'll see what happens. But let's get to the top 10 now and see what's going on there. Now this top 10 is prior to the fight between Rene Alvarado and Roger Gutierrez that took place on January 2nd. This is the year-end top 10 officially. So that fight happened. The top 10 has changed around, but heading into the new year, this is what the top 10 was. Roger Gutierrez is going to be in the top 10 now after that win against Alvarado. And actually, a couple of these guys at the end are actually going to drop out probably. But we'll see. Got to wait and see. But here's what's going on now. I mean, here's what's going on prior to that. So coming in, tied for 10th. First up is former world champion Andrew Cancio. Cancio drops 2 spots from number 8. He's 32 years old. He got, at the end of 2019, after he lost the title to Rene Alvarado, he, in their rematch, he was fired by Golden Boy, let go out of his contract due to, he was saying a lot of bad things about Golden Boy, so he was let go. Then, I believe it was in January, he signed a deal with Top Rank, and 2 or 3 times he had fights set up, and they got canceled due to, I think one guy tested positive for Corona that he was fighting. I think there was some visa issues with other fighters, so he just had bad luck getting back in the ring, so he ended up not fighting at all. Well, he wants to jump back into the top 10 and have a spot still. He's going to have to go through an undefeated prospect named Gabriel Flores Jr., and that fight's taking place on February 20th on ESPN undercard. So, you know, he's going to have an opportunity if he can beat an undefeated prospect, and I think he's got a chance to do that because Flores hasn't really fought anybody yet. So we'll see what happens. I really think it's a 50-50 fight. His experience against you know, the youth of Flores, we're gonna see. I'm probably gonna favor Flores in that one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Cancio pulls it out. So we'll see what happens. Tied with him for 10th is undefeated former featherweight champion Shakur Stevenson, 23 years old. This guy came into the year as the undefeated featherweight champion down at 126. He never defended his belt. In June, he brought the boxing back as he was the first televised card, or second. I can't remember which one. But he came back. I believe he was the first, the main event. And he got a win, a 6-round knockout win, and debuted at 130. And then he decided that he didn't want to come back down to featherweight to defend his belt. So he vacated his belt and officially moved up to super featherweight. And in December, after a fight card fell through, he ended up filling the spot for that fight card and took on, let me see, little-known veteran Toka Clary. Got a one-sided 10-round unanimous decision in that one. And now, prior to that, he was mandated to fight the winner of Jamel Herring and Carl Frampton for the WBO title. So he's the WBO's #1 contender right now. He is in line to fight the winner of Herring and Frampton. We don't know when they're going to fight yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if Stevenson stayed busy prior to that fight going down. I think that fight probably takes place during the summer, and Stevenson's going to have a chance to become a 2-division world champion before by the age of 23, 24. So a lot of opportunity for the young and very talented future of boxing, Shakur Stevenson. So we'll see. Okay, next, finishing the year, number 9, is former IBF champion Tevin Farmer. Tevin Farmer came in the year. He had a January 30th bout with Joseph Diaz locked up and ready to go on DAZN, and the two, you know, went at it. It ended up being a pretty good fight, but Joseph Diaz just seemed to outwork Tevin Farmer, even though Farmer was the favorite on paper. I picked Diaz to win this fight. I just thought he was a little bit better, and he proved that because it was a really close unanimous decision. Well, Farmer had a mandatory rematch in the contract, and he tried to get that invoked. You know, COVID delayed things, but the IBF is really what messed up their mandatory rematch from happening. Now, Diaz had started to look other places. He wanted to fight Abner Mares or make optional defenses. And his contract with Farmer was pretty concrete to rematch, but the IBF came in and said, well, he's got to make his mandatory first against Shavkat Rakhimov, and Diaz is doing that next. So Farmer's kind of been, you know, got the shitty end of the stick, the way the saying goes. So we're going to see what Farmer does. If he waits around for the winner of Diaz and Rakhimov, if he stays busy during that time, I hope he does and shakes off some rust, because that fight was good enough for a rematch to happen, and I hope we see these two guys locking horns hopefully sometime maybe during the summer, second half of the year. But Farmer's going to have to shake off some rust before he does that. Finishing the year now at number 8 is Jamel Herring, the WBO champion. He tested positive for corona a couple times that delayed fights, but finally he came back in September, early September, and took on Jonathan Okendo, the veteran. Ended up getting an 8th round disqualification win in kind of an ugly fight. He was winning the fight. You know, what's his name? Okendo kept doing illegal tactics, and I think there were low blows, and he finally got disqualified by the ref. So kind of a lackluster performance right here out of Herring. You know, but he has a lined up mandatory fight with Carl Frampton now, and now he knows what he's going to have to do after that. This could end up being a big year for the 35-year-old Herring if he wins. He's got Carl Frampton in his next fight. We don't know when that fight's going to happen, but it is going to happen. And then the winner of that fight has to fight Shakur Stevenson. So, you know, Herring's got some big fights coming up, win or lose, but if he wins, Herring could be right at the top of the division. So he's definitely going to get the opportunity in 2021 to prove himself and how good he really is at 35 years old. Number 7 is Rene Alvarado, the now former WBA regular champion. He entered the year as the regular champion. He did not fight at all in 2020 because COVID knocked his fight with Roger Gutierrez out. That was supposed to take place in April on DAZN. Well, they couldn't get the fight. They were supposed to fight in December on the Ryan Garcia-Luke Campbell undercard, but then I believe it was Campbell tested positive for COVID. So the fight got pushed back to early January, and the whole card did. And you know, he as I do this video, we know now that he lost that fight by a very close unanimous decision. But Alvarado's going to remain in the top 10. And I honestly believe after that loss to Gutierrez, because he beat Gutierrez the first time in 2017, and then he lost a razor-thin decision where he won 7 rounds of that fight, but because of the 3 knockdowns he suffered, he lost by 1 point on all 3 judges' scorecards. I believe that's gonna translate into a 3rd fight, hopefully during the summer, between Gutierrez and Alvarado, and it would be exciting as hell to see these guys back in the ring. So don't count Rene Alvarado out just yet. But he is 31 years old now, and he's going to have to get right back in the mix, and hopefully it's a 3rd fight with Gutierrez. Finishing the year number 6 is undefeated former featherweight champion Oscar Valdez. Valdez entered the year, you know, as the WBC's #1 contender, and was looking to cash in on that and take on Miguel Berchelt. Now, he drops 3 spots for number 3, 29 years old now. You know, it was just some cancellations, and then when when everybody started coming back from COVID, they agreed to take optional fights in between. So Valdez took on veteran Jason Velez, former world title challenger, outworked him. Velez was competitive, but he outworked him and got a 10th round TKO in that fight. And then when they tried to set up the fight for November, December with Berchelt tested positive for COVID, and the fight got canceled. So now the fight is back on. Oscar Valdez is going to have his chance to take over this division, you know, possibly take over this division and be right at the top and get his career best win as he takes on Miguel Berchelt on Saturday, February 20th in the main event of an ESPN card. That's a huge fight for Valdez. If he could go in and pull off the upset over Berchelt, he's going to shoot straight to the top of 130 and be right there with Gervonta Davis, to be honest. But personally, I don't think Valdez is going to beat Berchelt. I think Berchelt's going to break him down and knock him out. But, you know, they both have that brawling type style. But I just think Berchelt's a little bit better of a boxer. So we'll see. It's going to be a good one. Saturday, February 20th on ESPN, Valdez and Berchelt for the WBC title. Finishing the year number 5, he previously was not ranked as former 2-division champion Carl Frampton, 33 years old now. We knew Frampton was in talks to move up to 130 at the end of 2019, as he had fought that fight in November of 2019 at a catchweight of 128. I wanted to see him fight one more time and at the full official weight of 130 before I ranked him. And in August, after COVID and everything started coming back, he took on an unknown fighter named Darren Trainer. Got a 7th round TKO in that one as he fully moved up to 130 pounds. And now we're going to see, now he was supposed to fight Jamel Herring before the end of the year for the WBO title, but that fight is still going to happen. They were trying to get it done with a crowd. They still might, but that fight is going to happen, and it's we don't know when, but it should happen in the next couple months. It's already been ordered by the WBO, and the winner has to face Shakur Stevenson. So Frampton definitely can make his name as a 3-division world champion, and then he's going to have the youngster Shakur Stevenson waiting. But those are big fights right there, and this could be Frampton's last hurrah and his last stand against Jamel Herring. Personally, I'm picking Herring to beat him, but I definitely think Frampton can win the fight. So we'll see what happens. Should be a good one between him and Herring, and hopefully that gets announced soon. Finishing the year number 4 is former 4-division world champion Leo Santa Cruz. He entered the year number 2. He drops 2 spots. He's 32 years old now. He didn't fight all year, but he had the prospective fight with, he didn't fight until October, at least, at the end of October, when he took on Gervonta Davis at 130 pounds. Now, this fight was being talked about all the way from June, and it finally got made for October 31st. And a lot of people were looking forward to this one. A lot of people. You know, it was Santa Cruz demanded the fight to take place at 130. Even though Davis had moved up to 135, he demanded Davis come down to 130 again and do it. And Davis had struggled in weight at 130 when he was champion there. And so Leo Santa Cruz tried to take advantage of that. But Davis, you know, went out and got in very good shape for the fight and came out and looked great. And it ended up being a firefight for 5.5 rounds. I mean, they were going at it back and forth. Davis was ahead on all 3 scorecards, but it was like 3-2. And Santa Cruz had backed him up and landed some good shots too. But Davis being the bigger puncher and the bigger man naturally, it ended up playing dividends in the 6th round because, man, he landed one of the best punches I've ever seen. Definitely one of the best punches of 2020 when he landed a straight left-hand uppercut to Leo Santa Cruz and knocked him out cold in the 6th round of that fight. So, big-time win for Gervonta Davis right there. Tough, tough loss for Santa Cruz. He came back with a good attitude, said he'd like to fight him again. At 32, not sure what Santa Cruz does. Is he going to be a serious player at this weight class? We got to see. Personally, I don't think moving back down to 126 would be a bad idea for him. You know, Gary Russell Jr. sitting there. Technically, Santa Cruz is still the super champion of the WBA at 126 featherweight. So we got to see. But I like Santa Cruz. He needs to make a choice. He's probably going to take some time off. I wouldn't expect to see him back until probably the summer. And, you know, I don't know if he's going to really have a big-time fight this year after coming back off of a bad knockout loss like that. So we'll see what happens. Finishing the year number 3 is the IBF champion, Joseph Diaz Jr. Diaz got his career best win at the end of January when he challenged Tevin Farmer for the IBF title. Came in a mild, you know, a slight underdog in that fight, and he proved why he shouldn't have been an underdog at all, as he outworked Tevin Farmer in a good fight, just kind of beat him to the punch, seemed to be doing a little more, and it was a good overall performance, and he captured his first world title with that win. So impressive, impressive win. He had a mandatory rematch with Farmer. COVID stalled it, and then when they tried to get it going again, he was trying to fight other people, but you know, it looked like Farmer was going to get the fight, and they had finally agreed to it towards the end of the year, and then the IBF swung in and said they moved up their purse bid and forced Diaz to fight Shavkat Rakhimov, his mandatory #1 contender, instead. So he ended up not fighting the rest of the year, but he has that fight with Rakhimov taking place on February 13th on DAZN. That's a big fight right there for Joseph Diaz. Personally, I think he's going to beat Rakhimov by a decision, but Rakhimov is a full package. I think he beats him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he faces off against Tevin Farmer later on in the year in that mandatory rematch, but we'll see. But I like Joseph Diaz. He could definitely make a case for the top of the division this year in 2021. Now we have a two-way tie for first. The first of whom is the reigning and longtime WBC champion, Miguel Berchelt. He was #1 last year. He comes back at #1 this year. You know, tied for it, though. He's 29 years old now. He's been the champion for By the time he gets in the ring in February, it'll be over 4 years since he won the title in January of 2017. You know, he's been just knocking him down. But in 2020, he only fought once, and it was a no contest because Mexico didn't sanction the fight. It was a no contest where he had moved up to 135 just to shake off some rust from COVID. That was prior to a huge mandatory title defense against Oscar Valdez, which never happened because Berchelt, after they scheduled the fight with Valdez, tested positive for COVID and had to back out of the fight. So now Valdez is going to be taking on, you know, they are going to be fighting Saturday, February 20th in the main event of an ESPN card. Berchelt, this could end up being, you know, the biggest win of his career because he's facing an undefeated youngster as opposed to veterans that he's beaten in the past that were the best names on his resume. So a win here for Berchelt solidifies him right at the top of the division as he and Gervonta Davis go back and forth trying to prove who's the best. And, you know, he definitely has a chance to leave all doubt behind with a win over Valdez, and I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to break down Oscar Valdez and knock him out in the later rounds and retain his WBC title again. But we'll see. That's Saturday, February 20th on ESPN. And now finishing tied with him for first place at 130 is the undefeated WBA Super Champion, Gervonta Davis. Davis came back down and became a world champion for, you know, captured his 4th world title with a win, a beautiful 6th-round knockout win over Leo Santa Cruz. We talked about that a little while ago. Davis, this was just an impressive performance out of him because he was forced to come back down to 130 after struggling to make weight at 135 against Yuri Gamboa in December of 2019. He shook off all that and got focused and really went into the fight serious with Leo Santa Cruz, knowing it was the biggest fight of his career on pay-per-view on Halloween night, and he left no doubt who the better man was when they, you know, they were going toe-to-toe. It was a very action-packed fight, but in the 6th round, he landed a wicked uppercut that sent, that knocked out Santa Cruz cold, and he captured the title at 130. He still remains champion at 135. He's actually ranked in both weight classes for me because of that. You know, I think he'd rather make the 135 limit, but there are potential big fights at 130, so I think that's why he's staying there. So we just got to wait and see what happens for Gervonta next. Personally, I'd love to see him fight Gary Russell Jr. and invite him up. But there's a lot of hot talk right now about Gervonta and Ryan Garcia going at it at 135. So we just got to wait and see what plays out. Personally, I think Gervonta is not going to get the Ryan Garcia fight, and he might have to move on to fight a guy like Gary Russell, but that would be a big fight too at 130, so it's definitely something he should consider. But, all right, that's it. That's the top 10 for the 130-pound super featherweight division. I hope you guys enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.